The stars stretched endlessly across the black void of space, a silent reminder of how small humanity truly was. On board the Eos, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel, Captain Marcus Hale stood on the bridge, staring at the glowing holographic map projected before him. His crew worked quietly around him, their faces illuminated by soft blue and green lights from their consoles. For months, they had been traveling farther than any human had gone before, searching for signs of intelligent life. It was supposed to be just another routine scan when Ensign Clara Rivers, the young communications officer, suddenly froze. Her fingers hovered over her console as her eyes widened in disbelief. "Captain," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "you need to hear this." Marcus turned toward her, his brow furrowing. "What is it?" Clara adjusted a few settings, and the room filled with a strange sound, a series of rhythmic pulses interspersed with melodic tones. It wasn't random noise. It was deliberate, like a language. But what made everyone's blood run cold was the pattern embedded within it. 3 short bursts followed by 2 long ones. A universal signal used by humans to indicate distress. "Is that artificial?" asked Dr. Elena Vasquez, the ship's linguist and sonologist, leaning forward in her seat. Her dark eyes sparkled with both excitement and unease. "It has to be," Clara replied. "And it's coming from a star system about 5 light-years away." Marcus crossed his arms, his jaw tightening. Earth Command had sent them out here to explore, not to meddle in unknown dangers. Still, ignoring a cry for help felt wrong. He glanced at Elena, who was already jotting down notes on her tablet. She looked up and nodded firmly. "We can't turn our backs on this, Captain. If there's even a chance someone, or something, is asking for help, we owe it to ourselves, and to them, to investigate." After a moment of silence, Marcus sighed. "All right. Set a course for the origin point. Let's see what we're dealing with." As the Eos changed trajectory, anticipation buzzed through the crew. Days passed, and the signal grew stronger, more distinct. By the time they reached the source, the entire team was restless. What they found waiting for them was unlike anything they could have imagined. A dying planet loomed ahead, its surface cracked and barren under a sky painted with swirling red clouds. Debris floated around it like a cosmic graveyard, remnants of what might once have been moons or satellites. The planet itself seemed to pulse faintly, as though alive but struggling to survive. "This doesn't look natural," muttered engineer Raj Patel, squinting at his screen. "Something catastrophic happened here." But amidst the destruction, sensors picked up traces of energy readings, artificial structures buried beneath layers of dust and ash. Whatever civilization had lived here hadn't completely vanished yet. When the crew landed, stepping onto the cracked ground felt surreal. Strange crystalline towers jutted out of the landscape, humming softly as if alive. Every step echoed eerily in the stillness. And then, near one of the larger ruins, they saw it, a figure lying motionless against a jagged rock. It was humanoid but alien, its translucent skin glowing faintly. Its large, hollow eyes flickered weakly as it raised a hand toward them. In that moment, the crew realized they weren't alone. And whatever this creature was, it needed their help. But none of them could have guessed how dangerous that decision would become. The alien figure lay motionless on the cracked, dusty ground, its faint glow pulsing like a heartbeat. The crew of the Eos stood frozen, unsure whether to approach or retreat. It was both beautiful and unsettling, a fragile, translucent being that seemed almost otherworldly. Its long limbs were thin and delicate, and its oversized eyes reflected a mix of pain and desperation. Dr. Elena Vasquez took a cautious step forward, her medical kit clutched tightly in her hands. "We need to help it," she said firmly, glancing back at Captain Marcus Hale for approval. Marcus hesitated but nodded. "Be careful, Doctor. We don't know what we're dealing with." Elena knelt beside the creature, her movements slow and deliberate. She placed her hand near its chest, feeling a weak vibration, not quite breathing, but something similar. The alien stirred slightly, its lips parting as if trying to speak. A soft, melodic hum escaped its mouth, too faint to understand. "Can you communicate?" Elena asked gently, hoping the tone of her voice might convey kindness despite the language barrier. To everyone's surprise, the alien raised one trembling hand and pointed toward the crystalline towers nearby. Then, using gestures rather than words, it mimed an explosion followed by destruction. Elena watched intently, piecing together fragments of meaning. "It's trying to tell us something about its world," she said over her shoulder to the others. "Maybe how this place ended up like this." Raj Patel, the ship's engineer, frowned as he scanned the area with his handheld device. "These crystal structures are emitting some kind of energy signal. Could they be responsible for whatever happened here?" Before anyone could answer, the alien let out a low whine, drawing their attention back. It pressed its palm against Elena's arm, leaving behind a faint warmth. Images suddenly flooded her mind, visions of towering cities glowing under vibrant skies, then collapsing into ruin as fire rained down from above. She gasped, pulling away instinctively. "What is it?" Marcus asked sharply, stepping closer. I think it's sharing memories," Elena stammered, clutching her head. "They destroyed themselves. War, maybe? Or environmental collapse. It's hard to say." The alien made another sound, softer this time, almost pleading. It gestured toward the stars, then toward the Eos. Elena realized what it wanted. "It's asking for our help," she whispered. "But not just for itself, for its entire species." Captain Hale crossed his arms, his expression unreadable. "Help them how? Their planet's dying, and we barely have enough resources for ourselves." Elena turned to face him, her eyes fierce. "If we don't try, we're no better than whatever caused this mess. Besides, think about what we could learn from them. If they recover, they might share knowledge far beyond anything we've discovered." As the debate continued, Raj wandered closer to one of the crystalline towers. His scanner beeped erratically, picking up strange patterns within the structure. He touched the surface cautiously, only to recoil when the crystal lit up brightly, projecting symbols into the air. They floated like ghosts, shifting and rearranging themselves. Guys," Raj called out nervously. "I think these things are trying to talk to us too." The crew gathered around, staring at the glowing symbols. Elena studied them closely, recognizing patterns that resembled the distress signal they'd received earlier. "This must be their language," she murmured. "If we can decode it, we might finally understand what they want." But as she reached out to touch the projection, a sharp jolt ran through her body, making her stumble backward. The symbols flickered violently before vanishing entirely. The alien let out a mournful cry, curling in on itself as though in pain. "We're running out of time," Marcus muttered, glancing at the crumbling horizon. "Whatever we do, we need to decide fast." For now, the crew had made contact, but none of them knew whether this mysterious species deserved their trust, or if helping them would unleash something far worse. The alien's condition worsened as the hours passed. Its glow dimmed, and its movements became sluggish, like a candle on the verge of burning out. Dr. Elena Vasquez worked tirelessly to stabilize it, using portable medical equipment adapted for unknown biology. Despite her efforts, she knew they couldn't keep it alive forever, not without understanding more about its species. "It's not just dying," Elena said grimly, addressing the crew gathered around her. "It's trying to communicate something urgent before it's too late." Captain Marcus Hale paced nearby, his boots crunching against the cracked ground. He glanced at the crystalline towers looming in the distance, their faint hum growing louder as if responding to the alien's distress. "If we're going to help, we need answers," he said firmly. "What does it want from us?" Elena turned back to the alien, which weakly extended one trembling hand toward her. She took it gently, allowing another wave of images to flood her mind. This time, the visions were clearer, blueprints of intricate machines, lush green landscapes blooming from barren wastelands, and humans working alongside the translucent beings. Then came a darker sequence. Earth's cities crumbling under environmental collapse, oceans rising, skies choked with smoke. When the vision ended, Alina gasped, clutching her chest. "They're offering us technology," she explained breathlessly. "Something that can terraform dead planets, make them habitable again." The room fell silent. Terraforming had been humanity's dream for decades, a solution to Earth's dwindling resources and overpopulation. If this alien species truly possessed such knowledge, it could save billions of lives. But why? Marcus asked skeptically. Why would they give us something so valuable? The alien gestured weakly toward the crystalline structures, then pointed at the Eos. Alina interpreted its meaning. In exchange for helping them survive, they'll share their secrets with us. Raj Patel frowned, kneeling beside the alien to examine its frail body. "This feels off," he admitted. "Why would an advanced species rely on strangers to save them? Shouldn't they have backup plans or allies somewhere?" Alina hesitated, recalling the violent destruction she'd seen in the earlier visions. "Maybe they don't have anyone else left," she suggested softly. "Their world is collapsing, and they've run out of options." Marcus rubbed his temples, weighing the risks. Trusting the aliens meant risking everything. Their mission, their safety, even Earth itself. But turning away felt equally impossible. "If we agree," he said finally, "what do they want us to do?" The alien let out a soft hum, summoning the last of its strength. It reached into a fold of its tattered clothing and pulled out a small glowing shard no larger than a coin. The object pulsed rhythmically, casting strange shadows across the ground. When Alina touched it, fragments of information flooded her mind. Coordinates, instructions, warnings. "They want us to take this artifact back to Earth," she explained. "Activate it there, and it will unlock the technology they promised." Raj examined the shard cautiously. "This thing gives me bad vibes," he muttered. "Look at how it interacts with our systems. It's rewriting code without permission. What if it's dangerous?" Alina nodded reluctantly. There was no denying the artifact's unsettling nature, but desperation clouded her judgment. "We don't have much choice," she argued. "If we refuse, we lose the chance to save Earth. And them." As the crew debated, the alien let out a final, mournful cry before going still. Its glow faded completely, leaving behind only silence. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on their shoulders. "We'll bring the artifact back," Marcus decided after a long pause. "But we proceed carefully. No shortcuts, no blind trust." The crew loaded the shard onto the Eos, unaware that its presence would soon disrupt far more than their ship's systems. As they prepared for departure, none of them noticed the faint pulse emanating from the artifact, or the shadowy figure watching them from the ruins. Whatever bargain they'd made, it came with strings attached. Strings they were about to discover far too late. The Eos broke free from the dying planet's orbit, its engines roaring as it charted a course back to Earth. For the crew, relief mingled with unease. They had accomplished their mission, rescuing the artifact that promised salvation, but something about the glowing shard felt wrong. It sat in a secure containment unit at the heart of the ship, pulsing faintly with an eerie light that seemed almost alive. Dr. Alina Vasquez stared at the artifact through the reinforced glass, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that it was watching her. Ever since they'd retrieved it, strange things had started happening aboard the ship. Equipment malfunctioned without explanation. Crew members reported vivid dreams of fiery destruction and shadowy figures whispering warnings. Even Raj Patel, usually calm and logical, admitted he'd been hearing faint hums coming from the walls late at night. "It's affecting us," Alina murmured to Captain Marcus Hale during one of their briefings. "I don't know how or why, but this thing, it's changing things." Marcus leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. He hadn't slept well since leaving the alien planet, plagued by nightmares of crumbling cities and endless red skies. "We're halfway home," he said firmly. Once we get this artifact to Earth, the scientists can figure out what's going on. Until then, we keep our focus. But staying focused was becoming harder by the day. Tensions among the crew began to rise. Simple disagreements escalated into heated arguments. Ensign Clara Rivers snapped at Raj for no apparent reason, accusing him of tampering with her console settings. Raj retaliated, claiming she was paranoid and irrational. The once tight-knit team now walked on eggshells around each other, their camaraderie fraying under an invisible strain. Even communications with Earth Command grew erratic. Static interrupted transmissions, and messages were delayed or garbled. When Marcus finally managed to speak with Admiral Carter, the response was less than reassuring. "Just get that artifact here safely," Carter barked. "We'll handle the rest." His dismissive tone only deepened Marcus's unease. Was Earth prepared for whatever they were bringing back? Or were they blindly rushing toward disaster? One night, Alina found herself drawn to the containment unit again. Against her better judgment, she placed her hand against the cool glass, staring into the swirling glow within. Instantly, images flooded her mind, visions of alien worlds consumed by fire, civilizations reduced to ash, and armies of translucent beings marching across scorched landscapes. But this time, there was something new. Humans, their faces twisted in terror as the same crystalline towers loomed overhead, spreading ruin wherever they went. Alina stumbled backward, clutching her head. Her breathing came in short gasps as she realized the truth. The artifact wasn't just a tool, it was a weapon. Whatever the Vera had offered humanity, it came at a terrible cost. Before she could warn the others, alarms blared throughout the ship. Lights flickered wildly, and the hum of the engines faltered. On the bridge, Marcus shouted orders, trying to regain control, but the ship seemed to have a mind of its own. Panels sparked, and consoles displayed cryptic symbols that none of them recognized. "What's happening?" Clara yelled, gripping her seat as the floor vibrated violently. Raj rushed into the room, panic etched on his face. "It's the artifact. It's overriding the systems." As chaos erupted around them, Alina locked eyes with Marcus. Both knew what needed to be done. "We have to shut it down," she said urgently. "Now." But shutting it down wouldn't be easy, not when the artifact seemed determined to fight back. The EOs limped into Earth's orbit, battered and scarred from the harrowing journey home. The artifact's interference had wreaked havoc on the ship's systems, forcing the crew to make emergency repairs just to stay afloat. Captain Marcus Hale stood on the bridge, staring at the blue-green planet below, its beauty both comforting and surreal after months in the void of space. For the first time in weeks, he allowed himself a moment of hope. Maybe Earth's brightest minds could unravel the mystery of the artifact and contain its dangers. But as they descended through the atmosphere, their relief was short-lived. News of their discovery had already spread across the globe, thanks to fragmented transmissions intercepted by Earth Command. Crowds gathered outside the landing site, cheering wildly as the EOs touched down. Reporters shouted questions, cameras flashed, and banners declaring a new dawn for humanity fluttered in the wind. To the world, the crew were heroes returning with salvation. They didn't know the truth, that the artifact might bring destruction instead. Government officials greeted the crew warmly, but wasted no time seizing the artifact. Dressed in hazmat suits, a team of scientists carefully transported it to a high-security research facility buried deep underground. Alina Vasquez protested vehemently, insisting that she needed to oversee its study, but her pleas fell on deaf ears. "This is above your pay grade now, Doctor," one official said curtly before ushering her away. Back at headquarters, Marcus and his crew found themselves sidelined. Debriefings turned into interrogations, with officers pressing them for every detail about the alien species and the artifact. When Marcus voiced concerns about the Vera's true intentions, Admiral Carter dismissed him with a wave of his hand. "We don't have time for paranoia, Captain. This technology could save billions. Every second we delay puts lives at risk." Alina tried to sound the alarm privately, sharing her visions of devastation with anyone who would listen. But most dismissed her warnings as stress-induced hallucinations. Only Raj Patel remained supportive, agreeing to help her dig deeper into classified data about the artifact's effects during transit. Together, they uncovered troubling patterns, reports of increased aggression among personnel who'd interacted with the shard, along with unexplained changes in behavior. Meanwhile, public excitement reached fever pitch. Politicians hailed the artifact as humanity's savior, promising breakthroughs in agriculture, medicine, and energy production. Protests erupted in poorer regions, demanding immediate access to the technology. Religious groups claimed it was divine intervention, while conspiracy theorists warned of alien invasion. The world teetered on the edge of chaos, united only by blind faith in the promise of salvation. As days passed, strange occurrences began surfacing near the research facility. Animals fled en masse from surrounding forests. Crops wilted overnight, and locals reported seeing glowing figures in the distance. Scientists working on the artifact grew increasingly erratic, some refusing to leave the lab, others claiming they heard whispers guiding their experiments. One evening, Alina received an encrypted message from an anonymous source within the facility. Attached was a single image, a crystalline structure identical to those on the dying planet, sprouting inexplicably from the ground nearby. Her blood ran cold. The artifact wasn't just terraforming, it was spreading. Desperate to act, Alina confronted Marcus. "They're playing with fire," she said, her voice trembling. "If we don't stop this, it'll consume everything." Marcus clenched his fists, torn between duty and fear. He knew she was right, but convincing Earth Command to shut down the project would take more than warnings. It would take proof. And time was running out. Deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a fortified research facility known only as Sector 7, scientists worked around the clock to unlock the secrets of the artifact. Its faint glow illuminated the sterile white walls of the containment chamber, casting long shadows that seemed to move unnaturally. Despite its small size, the shard radiated an energy so potent it made the air hum with tension. For weeks, researchers had been decoding its alien language and testing its capabilities, inching closer to activation. Dr. Elena Vasquez watched from behind a reinforced glass panel, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She hadn't slept properly since returning to Earth, haunted by fragmented visions of destruction. Her warnings had gone unheeded, dismissed as paranoia or stress. Now, standing mere feet away from the artifact, she felt a gnawing dread settle in her stomach. Something about this moment felt irreversible and wrong. "Are you sure we should do this?" she asked Dr. Samuel Grant, the lead scientist overseeing the project. His face was pale but determined, his eyes fixed on the monitors displaying endless streams of data. "We don't have a choice," he replied without looking at her. "If we wait any longer, we risk losing control of the situation entirely." Alina opened her mouth to argue further, but before she could speak, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red lights flashed, bathing the room in an ominous glow. On the main screen, readings spiked erratically as the artifact began pulsing brighter and faster. The ground trembled slightly, and the hum grew louder, almost deafening. "What's happening?" shouted one of the technicians, frantically typing commands into their console. "It's activating itself," Grant yelled back, his voice tinged with panic. Someone must have triggered something during the final calibration. The artifact erupted in a blinding flash of light, forcing everyone to shield their eyes. When the brightness faded, the shard floated midair, spinning slowly as tendrils of golden energy snaked outward. They latched onto nearby equipment, melting metal and shattering glass. Sparks flew everywhere, and smoke filled the air. "Containment breach," someone screamed. Chaos engulfed the facility as staff scrambled to evacuate. But not all of them made it out. Those closest to the artifact collapsed to the floor, clutching their heads and screaming in agony. Their bodies convulsed violently before going still, their skin taking on a faint, unnatural glow. Elena stared in horror as she realized what was happening. The artifact wasn't just rewriting technology, it was altering living organisms. Outside the facility, the effects rippled outward. Trees turned black and crumbled to dust within seconds. Rivers bubbled and evaporated, leaving behind cracked, barren riverbeds. Animals fled in terror, while birds fell lifeless from the sky. Within hours, entire ecosystems were collapsing under the artifact's influence. Back inside, Elena grabbed Dr. Grant's arm, pulling him toward the exit. "We need to shut it down now," she shouted over the cacophony. "It's too late," he cried, tears streaming down his face. "It's already spreading." As they reached the door, Elena glanced back one last time. The artifact pulsed rhythmically, like a heart beating in sync with the planet itself. Golden veins of energy spread across the walls, branching out like roots digging deeper into the earth. A low, melodic hum echoed through the corridors, a sound both beautiful and horrifying. Above ground, news outlets reported strange phenomena erupting worldwide. Barren deserts bloomed with lush vegetation overnight, but the plants were unlike anything seen before, twisted, glowing, and toxic to touch. Crops mutated uncontrollably, producing bizarre hybrids that sickened anyone who ate them. People began experiencing vivid dreams of apocalyptic landscapes, waking up with no memory of how they got there. Captain Marcus Hale watched the reports from his apartment, his fists clenched in frustration. He'd tried warning Earth Command, but they'd ignored him. Now, humanity was paying the price for their hubris. Elena emerged from the facility, covered in soot and trembling with exhaustion. She knew the truth now. The Vera hadn't offered salvation. They'd unleashed a weapon designed to consume and assimilate. And Earth was next. Time was running out. The world descended into chaos as the artifact's influence spread like wildfire. What had initially seemed miraculous, barren lands transforming into lush green forests, deserts blooming with vibrant vegetation, quickly turned sinister. The new ecosystems were alien and hostile, thriving in ways that defied natural laws. Crops mutated into grotesque forms, poisoning food supplies. Animals became aggressive, attacking humans without provocation. Reports of people experiencing vivid nightmares grew rampant, some claiming to wake up miles away from their homes with no memory of how they got there. Governments scrambled to respond, but unity crumbled under the weight of fear and desperation. Some leaders argued for destroying the artifact immediately, citing the escalating dangers it posed. Others believed humanity could still control it, using its power to rebuild Earth into a utopia. Debates turned into shouting matches, alliances fractured, and nations began preparing for war, not against an external enemy, but against each other. In the United Nations Assembly Hall, representatives clash over what to do next. "This technology is rewriting our planet," shouted Ambassador Liu, slamming his fist on the table. "If we don't destroy it now, we risk losing everything." Across from him, Senator Margaret Hayes countered sharply, her voice trembling with urgency. "Destroying it means giving up hope. Think of the possibilities: clean energy, infinite resources, cures for diseases. We can't let fear dictate our future." Captain Marcus Hale sat silently in the back of the room, watching the chaos unfold. He'd been summoned to testify about the artifact's origins, but his warnings had fallen on deaf ears. Now he felt powerless, a spectator to humanity's unraveling. Beside him, Dr. Elena Vasquez fidgeted nervously, her mind racing with thoughts of the Vera's true intentions. She leaned closer to Marcus and whispered, "They're too divided to act rationally. If we want to stop this, we'll have to do it ourselves." Outside the assembly hall, protests erupted in major cities around the globe. Millions took to the streets, demanding answers and action. In New York, crowds gathered outside the UN headquarters, holding signs that read, "Save us or destroy us," and "No more experiments." Clashes broke out between opposing factions, turning peaceful demonstrations into violent riots. Police struggled to maintain order, but even they were divided. unsure whether to support containment or destruction. Meanwhile, rogue militias began seizing control of regions affected by the artifact's changes. Armed groups patrolled mutated forests, claiming them as their territory. Others raided research facilities, hoping to harness the artifact's power for themselves. Governments responded by deploying military forces, leading to bloody confrontations across continents. Amid the turmoil, Alina and Marcus reunited with Raj Patel and the surviving members of the EOS crew. They met secretly in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, far from prying eyes. The team was battered and exhausted, but determination burned in their eyes. "We need to get back to Sector 7, Alina said firmly, pacing the dimly lit room. "The artifact's core is still there. If we can disable it, we might be able to stop this madness." Raj shook his head, his expression grim. "Sector 7 is a fortress now. Half the world's armies are probably guarding it. Even if we manage to break in, we'll be walking straight into a death trap." Marcus stood up, his presence commanding silence. "Then we find another way. We've faced impossible odds before, and we'll face them again. This isn't just about saving Earth. It's about proving we're better than whatever the Vera intended for us." As they devised a plan, Alina shared her findings from the classified data she'd uncovered. The artifact wasn't just terraforming. It was rewriting DNA on a planetary scale. Every living thing touched by its energy was being altered, assimilated into something unnatural. Worse still, she revealed fragments of the Vera's history, showing how they had used similar devices to exterminate rival species before turning the technology on themselves. "This isn't salvation," Alina concluded, her voice heavy with dread. "It's extinction." The crew exchanged uneasy glances, knowing the stakes had never been higher. Time was running out, and failure meant the end of humanity as they knew it. But one thing was clear: they couldn't rely on governments or armies to fix this. It was up to them to make the ultimate sacrifice. And so, under the cover of darkness, they set out on a perilous mission, determined to reach the heart of the artifact's corruption before it consumed the entire planet. The journey to Sector 7 was fraught with danger. The once secret facility was now a fortress, surrounded by towering walls and armed guards patrolling every entrance. Military checkpoints dotted the roads leading to it, and drones buzzed overhead, scanning for intruders. Captain Marcus Hale and his team moved cautiously under the cover of night, sticking to shadowy alleys and abandoned buildings. They knew that getting inside would be nearly impossible, but turning back wasn't an option. Alina Vasquez led the way, clutching a stolen data pad containing schematics of the facility. Her hands trembled as she studied the map, her mind racing through countless scenarios. "There's a surface tunnel on the eastern side," she whispered, pointing at the screen. "It's not heavily guarded, but we'll have to move fast." Raj Patel adjusted the makeshift explosives strapped to his belt, grimacing at the thought of what lay ahead. "Fast might not be enough," he muttered. "If they catch us, we're dead." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on Raj's shoulder. "We've faced worse odds before. Stick to the plan, and we'll make it through." As they approached the tunnel entrance, the distant hum of the artifact grew louder, vibrating in their chests like an ominous heartbeat. It was a constant reminder of the power they were up against and the stakes of their mission. The air smelled metallic, tinged with the faint scent of burning earth, evidence of the artifact's growing influence. Slipping into the tunnel, the team moved silently, their footsteps muffled by the damp concrete floor. Flickering fluorescent lights cast eerie shadows on the walls, making every sound seem amplified. Halfway through, they encountered their first obstacle: 2 soldiers stationed near a security checkpoint. Marcus signaled for silence, motioning Alina and Raj to stay back while he crept forward. With practiced precision, Marcus disarmed one guard quietly, using a chokehold to render him unconscious. The second soldier turned just in time to see Marcus lunging toward him, but a well-placed strike sent him crumpling to the ground. The team dragged the unconscious guards into a nearby alcove, hiding them from view. "Let's go," Marcus urged, glancing nervously down the corridor. Every second counted. They reached the main chamber housing the artifact, its golden glow spilling into the hallway like liquid fire. The sight was both mesmerizing and terrifying. The shard floated at the center of the room, surrounded by crystalline structures that had grown unnaturally from the walls and ceiling. Tendrils of energy pulsed outward, latching onto machinery and organic matter alike. In the corner of the room stood a massive biomechanical construct, a guardian created by the Vera to protect the artifact. "This is it," Alina breathed, her voice trembling. "That thing. It's alive." The construct turned its head slowly, its glowing eyes locking onto the intruders. With a deafening roar, it surged forward, its limbs moving with unnatural speed and precision. Marcus raised his weapon, firing a burst of shots that ricocheted harmlessly off its armored body. "Focus on the artifact," Marcus shouted over the chaos. "Take it down." Raj hurled one of his improvised explosives at the construct, creating a temporary distraction. Sparks flew as the explosion tore through part of the chamber, giving Elena enough time to reach the control panel near the artifact. Her fingers flew across the keys, inputting commands to disable the core systems. "It's fighting back," she cried out, wincing as the console sparked violently, sending jolts of electricity through her arms. Meanwhile, Marcus engaged the construct in close combat, dodging its massive claws and retaliating with precise strikes. Each blow felt like hitting steel, but he refused to give up. Behind him, Raj worked furiously to set up another explosive charge near the base of the artifact. Suddenly, Alina froze, her eyes wide with horror. The artifact wasn't just defending itself, it was speaking to her. Whispers filled her mind, promising salvation if she surrendered, threatening destruction if she resisted. Tears streamed down her face as she fought to maintain control. "I can do this," she muttered through gritted teeth. "I won't let you win." With one final keystroke, she initiated the shutdown sequence. Alarms blared, and the construct let out an ear-splitting screech as the artifact began to destabilize. Golden light flooded the chamber, blinding everyone inside. "We need to get out," Marcus yelled, grabbing Alina's arm and pulling her toward the exit. Raj detonated the charge moments later, triggering a chain reaction that caused the entire facility to quake violently. As they fled, the artifact's glow intensified, its hum rising to a deafening crescendo. Behind them, the Guardian collapsed, consumed by the very force it had been designed to protect. But the artifact wasn't done yet. It pulsed once more before erupting in a blinding explosion that engulfed the chamber. The team barely made it outside as the ground shook beneath their feet. Looking back, they saw the facility collapse into ruins, smoke billowing into the sky. For a moment, there was silence. Then the realization hit them. Had they truly stopped it, or had they unleashed something even worse? The explosion tore through Sector 7, sending shockwaves rippling across the landscape. Flames licked at the night sky, casting an orange glow over the horizon as debris rained down like burning meteors. Captain Marcus Hale and his team stumbled away from the collapsing facility, their bodies battered and clothes singed. They collapsed onto the cold, hard ground, gasping for breath as they watched the inferno consume what was left of the artifact and the guardian that had protected it. For a moment, there was silence, a fragile calm after the storm. Then came the whispers. Alina Vasquez clutched her head, her face contorted in pain. "It's still here," she whispered hoarsely, her voice barely audible over the crackling flames behind them. "The artifact, it's not gone." Marcus turned to her sharply, his eyes narrowing. "What are you talking about?" "We destroyed it." "No," Alina replied, shaking her head violently. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she struggled to explain. The artifact wasn't just a machine. It was alive. Its energy, it's spreading. It's adapting. As if to confirm her words, the ground beneath them began to tremble. Golden veins of light erupted from the earth, snaking outward in all directions. Nearby trees twisted unnaturally, their bark splitting open to reveal glowing cores. Animals screeched in terror, fleeing into the darkness as the alien energy consumed everything in its path. Raj Patel cursed under his breath, staring at the spreading corruption with wide eyes. We didn't stop it. We made it worse. Marcus clenched his fists, his mind racing. If the artifact's energy couldn't be contained, then Earth itself would become a vessel for whatever malevolent force the Vera had unleashed. Humanity's survival depended on one last desperate act, and he knew exactly what needed to be done. We need to overload the core chamber, Marcus said firmly, turning to face his team. His voice carried both resolve and sorrow. If we can destabilize the remaining energy, we might be able to neutralize it completely. But that means going back inside, Raj protested, his voice rising in panic. That place is falling apart. We won't make it out alive. He's right, Elena added weakly, though her tone lacked conviction. She glanced toward the ruins of Sector 7, her expression torn between fear and determination. Even if we survive long enough to reach the core, the energy will kill us before we finish. Marcus stepped closer, placing a hand on each of their shoulders. I'm not asking any of you to come with me. This is my responsibility. I brought this thing to Earth. I'll make sure it doesn't destroy us. Elena stared at him, tears streaming down her face. For a moment, she looked like she might argue, but then she nodded slowly, understanding the weight of his decision. You're not doing this alone, she said quietly, standing up despite her exhaustion. We started this together. We end it together. Raj hesitated but eventually joined them, gripping his tools tightly. Fine, he muttered, forcing a wry smile. But if we die, I'm blaming you too. With renewed resolve, the trio moved back toward the ruins of Sector 7. The heat from the firestorm burned their skin, and the air grew thick with ash and smoke. Inside, the facility groaned under the strain of collapse, chunks of concrete crashing to the ground around them. The golden veins of energy pulsed erratically, feeding off the destruction. Reaching the core chamber, they found the remnants of the artifact, a swirling mass of light suspended in midair, growing brighter with every passing second. Marcus set up the final explosives while Elena worked frantically to reroute power systems, ensuring the blast would destabilize the energy field. It's ready, Marcus said, stepping back. But as he turned to leave, the artifact let out a deafening roar, lashing out with tendrils of energy that pinned Elena to the wall. Go, she screamed, struggling against the force holding her. Finish it. Marcus hesitated, his heart breaking. Then, with a heavy sigh, he pressed the detonator. The room erupted in blinding light, swallowing everything, including Elena's anguished cry. When the dust settled, the artifact was gone, but so was Elena. Standing amidst the wreckage, Marcus and Raj stared at the empty space where the core had been, their faces etched with grief and exhaustion. They had saved Earth, but at a cost neither of them could fully comprehend. And somewhere, deep within the void, the faint pulse of the Vera's consciousness lingered, whispering promises of vengeance. The days that followed were a blur of ash and mourning. The world woke to a changed Earth, scared but alive. Where the artifact's energy had spread, entire regions lay barren, their landscapes twisted into alien forms. Rivers ran dry, forests turned to glass-like structures, and skies shimmered with an unnatural golden hue in some areas. Yet, amidst the devastation, signs of life began to emerge. New plants, strange but resilient, sprouted from the ruins. Humanity stared at this reborn planet, unsure whether it was salvation or a curse. Captain Marcus Hale stood on a hill overlooking what remained of Sector 7, now reduced to a crater filled with glowing embers. His uniform was torn and stained, his face lined with fatigue. Beside him, Raj Patel leaned heavily on a walking stick, his body battered but still standing. Neither spoke for a long time, the weight of their loss pressing down like a suffocating fog. "She saved us," Marcus finally said, his voice rough with emotion. "Elena gave everything." Raj nodded silently, his jaw clenched tight. He didn't trust himself to speak without breaking down. Elena's sacrifice weighed heavily on both of them, not just as a friend, but as a symbol of humanity's resilience and cost of survival. News of the artifact's destruction spread quickly, though details were sparse. Governments scrambled to explain the catastrophe, blaming rogue factions or experimental failures rather than admitting the truth about the alien technology. Survivors pieced together fragments of what had happened, painting the crew of the EOs as heroes who had risked everything to save Earth. But Marcus and Raj knew better. They carried the guilt of unleashing the artifact, and the pain of losing those they loved. In the weeks that followed, Marcus became an unwilling figurehead, speaking publicly about the dangers of unchecked ambition. "We reached too far, too fast," he told crowds gathered in makeshift shelters. "We thought we could control something beyond our understanding, and when we failed, it nearly destroyed us all." His words resonated deeply, sparking global discussions about humanity's place in the universe and the responsibilities that came with exploration. Dr. Elena Vasquez's name became synonymous with courage and sacrifice. Her research, recovered from encrypted files she'd left behind, revealed the horrifying truth about the Vera, their history of conquest, assimilation, and eventual self-destruction. She had ensured humanity wouldn't repeat their mistakes, even if it cost her life. As Earth began to heal, rebuilding efforts brought people together in ways no one had expected. Nations set aside old rivalries to focus on recovery, sharing resources and knowledge to adapt to the new environment. Strange crops flourished in altered soils, providing food where none should have grown. Scientists worked tirelessly to understand the lingering effects of the artifact's energy, hoping to reverse its most damaging impacts. But not everyone believed the danger was over. In quiet moments, Marcus would stare at the stars, haunted by whispers he couldn't shake. The faint pulse he'd felt during the final moments in Sector 7 lingered in his mind, a reminder that the Vera's consciousness might still exist somewhere, waiting. One night, under a sky streaked with unfamiliar constellations, Marcus met with Raj for one last conversation. "Do you think we'll ever see them again?" Raj asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Marcus replied honestly. "But if we do, we'll be ready." Far beyond the edge of known space, a faint signal pulsed through the void. A cry for help, distorted and faint, yet unmistakably familiar. Somewhere, another civilization awaited discovery. Another choice loomed on the horizon. And humanity, scared but unbroken, vowed never to forget the lessons learned.